Carter Burrell from Space Force. Thank you so much for joining our Emmy Composers panel. How did you join Space Force?
I joined the force when Greg Daniels was looking for composers, I think more generally, and my agent usually just assumes that I'm going to say no to television shows, and it's usually a safe assumption. But I am such a big fan of Greg Daniels' work that in this case, I said, no, yeah, I'd like to talk to him. So that's how I got involved. I began with a phone call with Greg. I live on the East Coast, and the production is going on the West Coast, so it began with a phone call.
One thing I love about the score is that it's such an atypical score for a comedy because I think you might expect the score to be like lighter to play up the comedy, but the score is, I guess you could say serious, but it's kind of very like straight and matter of fact, and it's like kind of like a militaristic band almost. So, did you guys discuss like playing down like a comedic score and playing up more like the dramatic elements of it?
Well, I did. Actually, my first conversation with Greg, he sent me the first episode, very rough cut, which I don't think had any music on it. And Lisa Kudrow hadn't even been cast, I think, at that point, so it's that rough. But he sent that to me so we'd have something to talk about. And I said that I felt that Steve Carell was presenting, his character as a fully rounded human being. He's not just a comic character, but a person. He's got an inner life. He's got a family he cares about. And he's got real hopes and dreams, and that I thought it would be nice for the music to play that, and rather than simply playing it as a comedy. And I think at that point in the process, they'd shot several episodes, but they were still editing them, and Greg was still tuning, and indeed would continue to tune throughout the whole season, that question of like, how much do we play this for comedy? How much do we play it for, I guess you could say dramedy, but not really, but just how much are we making it a satire? How much are we playing this as being about real people? And so at that point, I think he was mostly concerned that it was too much of a comedy. And so we discussed, yes, this idea of playing Steve Carell's hopes and dreams. And I suggested sort of a Aaron Copland style, Americana score, like, I didn't even say orchestral. I said, Americana. Maybe there's a piece of Copland's called Fanfare for the Common Man that's all brass, and that works within the military, milieu too. And Greg liked that idea, and it, hopefully it works because the nobility of the score points up the silliness that you're sometimes seeing on screen, but it also allows you to actually be involved in the challenges Space Force faces and trying to get rockets to the moon, which is one of the things they're trying to do during season one.
Mm-hmm. Did you know about the entire arc of the first season? Like, did you know they were going to the moon?
No, I didn't. And I'm not sure, I'm not sure how much was written at the point at which I began. I think Greg kind of just like gave me a one sentence description of, say, episode 2, 3, 4, and then kind of trailed off. So no, I did not know exactly where it was going, but the general concept that this man he's a patriot, he's a dedicated military professional. And the first episode, you kind of wonder about his competence, and he is Steve Carell, so you imagine that we play off the possibility that things might go terribly wrong, but in fact he's trying very hard, sincerely, to do what he's called upon by a somewhat impetuous president, and that so you don't know where it's going to go, but that it's going to be pushed forward. And so between the president and some challenges from the Chinese Space Force, do end up, yes, heading for the moon by the end.
In the ninth episode, which you're submitting, that's when, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, that's when they get to the moon. So, and like all the cues in there are so grand, and it's like a full orchestra. So how did you approach scoring, like the launch and then like actually stepping out on the moon?
Well, yeah, I will say also in that first conversation with Greg, he said, do you think we could use orchestra? And that is not half-hour comedies are not typically scored with orchestra. It's you know partly, I guess, budget and partly time constraints, and partly that the scale of these shows isn't that. But he liked that idea, and of course, I thought that would be great. The question was whether Netflix would be willing to pay for it, and when they were, that was thrilling. So yes, then in episode 9, that is kind of episode 9 and 10 sort of work as one piece for Go to the Moon, and episode 9 is sort of the upbeat, hopeful, aspirational one, getting to the moon. Episode 10 is there's a dark side that is revealed once we are there. So yeah, there were a lot of things to play in 9. There were he is constantly beset, Steve Carell's character, by family issues, and as I say, a somewhat unpredictable, capricious president. But then he also has to deal with the scientists, and I can't even begin to list all the things he has to deal with. So there's those questions of apprehension. Are they going to do it? A lot of tension and anticipation. They do get the moon, so there's the opportunity for a lot of glory in that moment. And then there are moments of just like grace and awe on stepping out onto the moon. It does travel a lot of territory, which as a composer was a lot of fun. It was great. We cut for every color basically.
Mm-hmm. You referenced 9 and 10 being connected, and I loved like what you did at the end, where it's like the Chinese rover rolls over their flag, and it's like this very like sinister score, but it bleeds directly into 10, and because it's Netflix, it just queues up the next episode. So was that your idea to just like instantly go into the score in 10?
That was my idea. Although they had the picture. I mean, the picture is similar. You're seeing it from you're seeing it in different places, but the visual is similar at the end of 9, at the beginning of 10. But yeah, it turned out that you can discuss with Netflix exactly where that automatic switch is going to happen that takes you to the next episode. You have a few seconds of play in there. So we decided exactly where that would happen so that the music is able to like match like the key and etc. Tone. So that's a very nice way to create a segue. And it is, as you say, after all the awe and glory of landing on the moon, 9 ends on this dark, sinister note that we then kicks off 10.
Mm-hmm. One of the lighter themes and contrast of the rest of the score is the theme for John Malkovich's character. It's kind of very like dainty and bouncy. So what did you use for that, and what was the thinking behind that?
So Carell's character is established pretty well in episode 1. Malkovich, who is his foil in the show, and then ultimately partner, is he sort of comes into his own in episode 3. And so when we got to that, we said, okay, so Carell is already established with a sort of military sound, basically a brass military band. And Greg put out the question, so what is the opposite of that? We want Malkovich to be basically the opposite of that, and want to say that musically in some way. And so we went with harpsichord as the opposite of military band, which is, there are probably other things you could have suggested, but it seemed so completely coming from a different place. And I have to say there was some pushback, because it's also a sound that so many people aren't used to hearing in the last couple of 100 years, unless you're a fan of Baroque music. That there were people in the editing room, and I don't know about if there were people at Netflix, but who really just like made the hair go up in the back of their necks to hear harpsichord featured in their comedy. But it I think does work as being exactly the opposite of the military band, and finally we were able to sell it, I'm happy to say. And it's a bouncy version of harpsichord, and somewhat particular chords that it follows are a little, allow for a little bit of mystery and what have you. But basically his sound is the harpsichord.
Did you use harpsichord in Being John Malkovich?
No, I don't think I did. But I don't think there's a whole lot of overlap between Being John Malkovich and his character in this one.
No. Well, Carter, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you back here in a little bit.